All right, everyone, we've got more legacy media pretense here. They're currently rambling about Donald Trump and the energy industry. Link in the description, archived, of course. Recently it was revealed by sources close to the matter, which means we're not even sure that any of these things were even physically said. We don't have a recording. We have a couple people who went to a dinner with Trump, and he was talking about the oil industry and saying, well, you know, if you're funding my campaign, I'd love to go on a deregulation spree for fossil fuel. I actually believe that the story is true. I believe that the claim that he said something to that effect is fundamentally correct. What's the problem? That's exactly what we need. Under Donald Trump, we became a net exporter of oil and natural gas. We have vast energy resources. They're not going anywhere. The fundamental truth is that even with the slow uptick in the number of people using electric vehicles, you still need fossil fuel. You do realize that coal, oil, and natural gas produce a significant proportion of the U.S. energy grid's needs as well. And you're going to need more of it. Let's say that you were to transfer, for example, to an all-electrical grid-based system for trucking, which is a terrible idea, but let's say you do that. For trucking and trains and buses and planes and all of these other things, you're using the electrical grid to produce jet fuel. You're using it to create various synthetics for fuel purposes. You're using it to charge electric vehicles with all the problems attendant that, the massive amount of lithium and therefore strip mining in Asia you'll need to do, etc. All of the aluminum for the windmills, all of the Chinese solar fields, which really we should ban entirely, and we should be subsidizing homeowners to mount them on existing structures so that we can let that land go fallow and be wild and free, so we can have trees there and grass and things like that. The exception being certain farming practices in semi-arid areas where actually providing shade actually provides cover for crops and can concentrate water as well as it runs off the panels and actually is efficient. But unless you're doing that, having a solar field in and of itself is bullshit. Having windmills is bullshit. They don't even pay for themselves. It's a grift, basically. Much of the energy for that grid will need to come from fossil fuel resources. It can't all be nuclear. Every time you try to build a nuclear plant, everyone within a 10-mile radius protests. And even though they are generally safe, and the modern nuclear plants even far safer than Chernobyl or Fukushima or something like that, you have seismic problems. If they're near the shore, you can have a tidal wave problem, as we saw with Fukushima, but generally safer. But it can't compensate for the vast amount of additional energy you're going to need for a system in which more and more people are charging up as opposed to going to the gas station. There will also never be an end to gas-powered vehicles, and certainly not to diesel. Any trucker would be insane to voluntarily use an electric truck as opposed to a diesel truck. And what's going to happen over time, if we don't fix this problem, and it is a problem, it's a total grift, it's a power grab by the government. It has nothing to do with clean air, clean water. It has nothing to do with renewability, green energy, or anything like that. It's solely to concentrate literal power, as in electricity, in the hands of the elites. That's all this is about. They want to be able to shut off your electricity so that you can't drive your car if you're a dissident, in other words. That's their end goal. It's not about green energy, it's NIMBYism. And the climate hawks out there largely are oblivious to this. Don't blame them. They're just stupid. They don't understand that the end game is malevolent, not benevolent, and that the elites are eating filet mignon while pushing the mealyworm burgers for a reason. They're telling you to travel less while taking their private jets out everywhere for a reason. John Kerry enjoys traveling all around the world. His carbon footprint is bigger than 100 average citizens for a reason. They can't put two and two together. If they cared about the environment, they'd go and plant a tree. They'd convert to all organic gardening. They'd invest their time in terra preta. Hell, biochar, if you're worried about CO2 recapturing, biochar could save the world. And grow a lot of big crops and be real cool and awesome at the same time. And it's fun making charcoal because it's just fucking awesome. It smells good and, it's fun on a cold day. You're making your charcoal. You're staying warm by the barrel. Anyway, him deregulating the oil industry. So drill, baby. And natural gas. So Texas can exploit the natural gas and oil offshore. You can drill in Alaska, etc. Reopen certain federal lands for limited use, which I don't want to see just nothing but oil rigs on all the federal park system or anything like that. Like, oil rigs in the middle of Yellowstone. There should be some areas set apart just to be natural. I do agree with that. I do believe in conservationism. But that being said, generally speaking, we need more fuel. We have the ability to become a net exporter, to massively, massively improve the U.S. economy. Most nations in the world are hip to the green energy grift. You got to realize this is the other thing. A handful of post-industrial decadent nations are the ones heavily investing in these things. Everyone else isn't. There's no point to it. It's too expensive. It's not efficient enough. There's no point. The United States has a huge amount. We have the most oil in the world. We have the most natural gas in the world. We have one of the largest amounts of coal in the world. We have our own lithium. We have our own aluminum. We have our own iron. We have every resource we could possibly need, and massive amounts of it in many cases. We've got one of the most rich chunks of land in the entire fucking goddamn world. With nice, sweet, high-quality oil, huge bubbles of natural gas. We've got uranium. They won't let them prospect for it anymore. There's plenty more out there if you look, I'm sure. We've got all these things. We don't need anybody else. We can export. We can have a better trade balance with China. Instead of importing shit to them, let's export to them. Make a lot of fucking money. And they might try to manipulate their currency again and leave us hanging, but we can tackle that separately. That's what we need. We need another energy boom. Why do you think why do you think that the economy fundamentally didn't collapse under lockdownerism? Other than Trump passing a necessary bailout after declaring a state of emergency and then the governors went haywire. Other than that, it was the energy industry and deregulation. Do you think, had that happen in a Hillary Clinton presidency, with the massive new regulations and taxation, tax on the energy industry that would have come attendant with that? We see what Biden's doing. That's what Hillary would have done. Wars and all these other things. We'd be expending a shit ton of money for oil and blood and everything else. Do you think that the economy would have held up, or do you think it would have triggered a depression? I think it would have triggered a literal Great Depression. And we'd still be clawing our way out of it now, even if Trump had been elected in 2020 on the coattails of Hillary Clinton being an abysmal failure. We probably would have seen World War III by now, but assuming that didn't pop off, we'd probably be in a prolonged depression situation with 10% unemployment and breadlines and shit like that. Bernie Sanders would feel right in his element. He'd be haranguing every single day. Oh, he would be energized. He'd be McLovin' it. Well, the Democrats' neoliberal policies aren't enough. We need to double down on the things that caused these problems in the first place. That's what Bernie would suggest. We'll be talking about his hyperbolic op-ed, by the way, in the live stream today. The legacy media is pretending that deregulating the fossil fuel industry is going to turn the world into Tatooine, but it's not. It's simply not. We've seen nothing but mythology after mythology from the NIMBYist crowd. You've got a handful of happy hippies out there that plant trees and do organic gardening and pick up trash on Green Up Day and try to do something actually helpful for the environment. Kudos to them. You're not a NIMBYist. But for every one of them, you got 10 NIMBYists who say, well, I like the electric vehicle thing, but I don't want that nuclear plant in my neighborhood. No, put it in the next town over. I like addiction treatment, but not in my suburban neighborhood. No. Put it in the ghetto or something. It's NIMBY. It's bullshit. These people are retards. And legacy media pretending that extracting more oil or gas is going to destroy the world is quite clearly wrong. If you're worried about emissions of every possible kind, you should be pressuring China and India. Those are the big polluters in the world, both per capita and as absolute numbers. They don't give a shit how many coal power plants they build. I would note that the largest green energy project in the world is currently in the arid western side of India. Wait until the Pakistanis rain missiles down on it and destroy half of your power grid. Apparently they're going to generate enough power to power a nation the size of Switzerland. That's pretty impressive, actually. We'll see how the infrastructure works, but it's not enough. It's not enough to compensate for the energy needs of this world. Not under the current schema. If you decentralized solar and subsidized its use on homes, that would go a long way, and it could be all made in the USA. That's possible to absorb. You improve your grid. You have greater power output. If you deregulated road rules in the United States, in Europe they have what's called a bromobile, and it is a moped with a car mounted on top of it. It's usually going to be an electric vehicle, although many of them run on petrol. They have a good mileage. They're great for inner city driving. They clear up space in the roads because they're small, subcompact. It's about the size of a smart car, actually, and efficient. That's perfectly fine. For short haul, electric vehicles, yeah, makes perfect sense. Not everyone likes to go on long road trips. They don't really need the SUV. It's not, and they're never using it for any long haul driving. I sort of fit in there. If I could get like a bromobile sort of thing here, I might actually get one because I'm like, How often do I really want to drive outside of Rutland County? Maybe once a year or something like that? Who gives a fucking goddamn hell? And the legacy media is just being pretentious. There's no problem from extracting oil and gas. If anything, you can create millions of jobs, enormous number of middle-class job positions. You can create a huge amount of wealth for the coffers of our country, and we can begin to be energy non-reliant once again. We don't have to bring it in from Saudi Arabia. We'll have it right in our own backyard. That's about all. Peace out.